must understand that if there would not be a Russian attacks on Ukraine and Russian war waged against Ukraine, we would not speak tonight about these missiles and these things. So obviously this war is a cause for such happening. It is a very, very serious thing. And this is why we must be careful, of course, to assess really all the facts and wait for final confirmations from Polish side about the type of missiles, about how it could happen, who could fire and why. But it seems at this moment that Poland will invoke Article 4 for consultations, which is understandable. And my personal reaction would be that, first of all, we must understand that if there would not be a Russian attacks on Ukraine and Russian war waged against Ukraine, we would not speak tonight about these missiles and these things. So obviously this war is a cause for such happening. Now, was this just an accident or was this kind of a test or something else? At this stage, we cannot determine this, but probably we must be aware that we must ensure that our citizens can be safe and such mishappenings, if there are mishappenings, do not happen in future.
So if we have an Article 4 meeting, that would be NATO ministers consulting about how they should respond. This is very different from an Article 5 response, which says that if there is an attack on one NATO nation, that is deemed as an attack on all. What you're saying is that there needs to be some careful consideration in case this was an accidental strike.
Yes, we can't, of course, rule that out. This is why my strictly personal opinion at this stage would be that I would support consultations on Article 4 because we must clarify the situation, but I would not go at this moment further. That already would be then the outcome of these consultations.
How great do you think is the risk that this could lead, though, to a major escalation, to some form of NATO response?
Well, the biggest escalation, looking from the Russian perspective, is the show of too small resilience and of the weakness. So the escalation basically is produced by weakness on the Western side. So yes, we must be measured. We must not overestimate our response, but at the same time, it must be united and strict so that we can ensure and we can also signal to anybody that we will not tolerate any kind of mishappenings or planned attacks on our territory or nearby our territory. So that must be made very clear.
Russia has denied that its weapons were responsible, but if it's found that these were Russian missiles, even if it was perhaps a mistake to hit what appears to be a farm building rather than some strategic target, do you think that should lead to some form of NATO military response against Russian forces?
What I would think, if that would be the case, I would first of all try to figure out how can I ensure that no more missiles land on our countries and on our territory. And in my personal view, the best response would be to ensure that the border areas, which might include also Western Ukrainian territories, would be somehow bolstered by air defense systems, which simply would not allow such missiles simply to rain on our people.
So would you like this incident to trigger more weapons being sent to Ukraine, stronger air defences, perhaps a bigger NATO presence along Ukraine's border?
Yes, I would not exclude the bigger NATO presence, especially with technologies and air defense systems near to a Ukrainian border. And as far as support to Ukrainian military, it's very clear that the only way how we can end this war, this unjust Russian attack on Ukraine, is simply to force Russia to come on terms and to start to negotiate, and not to allow them to think that they can win Ukraine or anybody else or any other country nearby just by brute force, because that would really escalate and trigger further conflicts and wars. And we cannot afford simply this.
Dr. Artis Pabriks, Deputy Prime Minister of Latvia and Minister of Defence. Really good to speak to you, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Madam, for calling. Good night.